In the prior segment there, we were speaking with Cody Willard, host of the Fox Business News Happy Hour program. Great. He's doing some great investigative journalism. It's good to know there are some journalists out there actually doing their jobs, and Cody is one of the good ones. And I tell you, he's on to something here that's huge. It's probably the biggest story in the history of our country. The magnitude of the corruption on Wall Street and its interrelationship with our executive branch and with our legislative branch, the Congress. It's very corrupt. We definitely need an audit of the Federal Reserve, as many have advocated. We need to examine these relationships. We need to clean house. And basically, we should have never done any bailouts. Right there, this adage that it's too big to fail and all that is BS. Bankruptcy is not always a bad thing for these companies. They don't disappear, folks. They go through a reorganization. The components of the business are picked up either by other more solvent businesses. If there's a need for their goods and they're providing a needed service or providing goods that the consumers desire, that component of the business will continue on. It doesn't disappear, folks. So all that scare tactics they tried to put onto us, basically a lot of that was driven by those who wanted to protect the union contracts within some of those businesses, which literally added to their demise. Because in a bankruptcy, it would allow the bankruptcy judge to renegotiate those contracts, and that's what they were trying to avoid by keeping some of these automakers and such that were needed to have a healthy reorganization. It forced them to operate under the very rules and the union contracts that put them in the poorhouse to begin with, and us as taxpayers are having to sacrifice our kids' college education, our savings accounts, our ability to provide for our families, to bail out these corrupt people and to keep some of these union contracts that are dysfunctional in place. And so you end up with really no reform. So hopefully we've learned our lesson. No more bailouts. It's indebted our kids forever. And beyond that, the corruption on Wall Street with these entities like Merrill Lynch and some of these big Morgan Stanley, a lot of these big brokerage houses and investment bankers at the Wall Street level are complicit. They were not being honest neither with their investors, but certainly not with the American people. And they're turning around and these large banks getting billions of dollars of money from us that's being printed, frankly, and it's going to cause inflation. So that's the most insidious hidden tax there is. When your savings, you have $100 in savings, and in 1 year it's now worth $97 because they've printed more money and just out of thin air, and then given it away. So not only are you being taxed more, you have an insidious hidden tax that will result later on in inflation. And your savings are eroding. So, folks, we need to really pay attention to investigative reporters like Cody Willard doing the good job, exposing the level of this corruption. And our executive branch should certainly not reward people like Ben Bernanke with other posts and promote them in the hierarchy of the government when they've proven themselves to be either incompetent or totally corrupt. So no more of that. We need honesty and transparency in our government at all levels, and we need to expose these people for what they are. They are crooks, and they need to go to jail and not be in charge of our nation's wealth. It is anybody that's complicit in that should be out of office and immediately prosecuted. Very lax law enforcement. And by the way, just on that too, as I brought up earlier in the program, we were talking about some of these people in political office, like Charlie Rangel, House Ways and Means Chairman, doesn't know the tax code and is under investigation for misusing his own properties. Now, come on. This guy's in a position of power, probably one of the most powerful positions in our federal legislature, and this guy doesn't know the tax code. That's his defense. Oh, come on. Give me a break. You got John Murtha, very corrupt. All these guys, John Conyers, corrupt. Come on. These guys, get them out of office or investigate them. And we need to start issuing subpoenas, and Congress needs to do their oversight functions now and before they run this country totally into the ground. So just absolutely thankful for Fox Business News for doing the job. And the mainstream media, they ought to jump in there and start getting with it and doing the service they're supposed to provide for the American people. along those lines, I was going to read you a quote here. I found it kind of interesting that talks about taxation. This quote says, "People change their behavior if they know the harder they work, the less they can keep." That again is, people change their behavior if they know the harder they work, the less they can keep. Now that was said by Cal Thomas back in '94. Yeah, he's a columnist. And then also, here's a fellow, von Metternich, and this was in 1880, and he said, "To ruin those who possess something is not to come to the aid of those who possess nothing. It is only to render misery general." I'll say that one again. That one's great. 1880. To ruin those who possess something is not to come to the aid of those who possess nothing. It is to only render misery general. So, folks, I mean, that's basically the definition of communism, when you make everybody equally poor. We've got to watch that. Today, I noticed there was a letter to the editor. I've got to give kudos to a friend of mine who wrote this. He doesn't know I'm going to say this. He was in the paper today. His name's Ernie Bentley. He wrote this letter to editor, and he did a darn good job. When I used to try to stay in shape, I played a little racquetball, and I would play with Ernie down there at Water Racket. He's criticizing some of the state salaries that are so out of line with the economy, and he's right. I mean, he's alluding to the Cal State Bakersfield example with some of these very high-paid administrators out there. They're saying they're going to take furloughs equaling 10% pay cuts for a lot of the professors out there. Well, at the same time, they're raising fees for the students. They've gone up 30% in 3 years. That's crazy expensive. But a lot of these people are very well rewarded as state employees. And some of the examples he gives are wow, it's over the top. And he mentions specifically UC Berkeley. I guess they have a head coach up there making close to $2.3 million. They have an assistant coach earning $352,000. They have some professors earning above $350,000. They have a UC Berkeley police officer gets compensation just under $100,000, and it goes on and on and on. And he's got, I guess, an electrician also at the UC Berkeley campus making $97,000. So pretty well compensated people, I would say, and he's right, it's way out of line considering our current economy. We have dentists and doctors, he goes on to mention, making $300,000 to $500,000 range in our prison system. Basically, our prisoners are getting better health care than the average working Joe in this state. That is crazy upside down priority. So kudos to Ernie Bentley. Good citizens like this writing good, informative letters to editor is very important. We need to all be watchdogs and get this information out and disseminate it to our fellow citizens. Great job, Ernie. Appreciate what you're doing there. And so hats off to Ernie for doing that. And all citizens out there should be watchdogs. Watch what your government's doing. It's your country. It's your money. And these people are your public servants. They put on their pants the same as you do. You should never be intimidated by people that are in public service. They're your neighbors and your friends, and you should respect them. But at the same time, they're your servant, and they're there to serve you. They've stepped up to do that job, and so you should never be cowed or feel intimidated at a public forum or any other forum where you wish to speak or you wish to question their actions. So, we need to be diligent and be good citizens. We owe it to our kids to make sure we watch our government and we leave a legacy for our children, not indebtedness. And, that is so very, very important. Folks, we'll take a break here. You are listening to KERN, now bigger and better at AM 1180.